Uh, so welcome everyone today to NASPA's small programs section webinar on how do we reposition the MPA MPP curricula to address diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm sorry to say that our small program section chair, Peter Haruna, is unable to join us today because of a staff meeting that was scheduled during this time, but he sends his regrets. But I am really excited to have Halise Levine here from LIU Brooklyn to talk about what their program has done to look at diversity, equity, inclusion. And they're one of our initial NASPA badge initiative.
I'm so excited about that.
Is on our inclusion badge. And so I'm going to turn it over to Halise to talk a little bit about what LIU Brooklyn's doing.
Thank you. I'm just going to give me 1 second to share my screen. Okay. Well, first of all, Stacy, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm not going to take anybody's place, but I'm just going to, talk about what you've asked me to. And again, this is just a kind of a testament to my program and the hard work we've done, certainly not taking anything away from anybody else's program. I know we're all very hard workers and we do everything we can to promote diversity and inclusion in our program. So this is what we have, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you and getting your ideas and your feedback. So what I've decided to do is couch it a little bit in more of the aggregate instead of focusing on one of the curriculum components that we have. So I'm kind of titling it Dedicated to Diversity, Inclusion, Mission, Intention, and Integration. And so what I'd like to do in the short time that I have is just to provide a little context, because I think the success, if you will, and I hate to look at it as a goal, but one of the successes in terms of our ability to reposition this in our curriculum is what we're born with, basically. And that's going to provide context in terms of what Brooklyn, New York is. So just a little context in terms of the background of our program, our cohort data, and then how do we take this DEI piece, this ridiculously important component of our programs, especially in public service, and how do we get it to finally integrate into our curriculum? And so I'm going to talk about a little bit about our mission, intention, and integration and how we do that. And basically we do it through 7 pieces, which is faculty representation, scholarship and service, outcome assessment, internal and external events, speakers, special events, end of program capstone design, and social media. And those are really the different components that are really necessary to intentionally get us to that final integration, knowing though that it really does start with the mission. And then the outcome for us and where we ended up was we did win the NASPA Diversity Award in 2016, and we were able to achieve the inclusivity badge. So that's where I'm going with this. And just a little bit context, we're a 42 credit program. We have 2 specializations in health and public. And we're in Brooklyn, New York. It's very diverse. It's very multicultural. It's very urban. In just preparing for this, what I've also learned very recently, though, gentrification is really very detrimental to the data in terms of, and our demographics that we've had for so many years. But this is one place in time. It's a snapshot. It's where we are today. So we're a private nonprofit university. We've been around forever. I think the first graduating class was in 1931. So it was established in 26. Now, I know this is a small program webinar, and I always wanted to know if we fit into a small program. And I always thought we did. And the reason why is over the years, we've had close to 160, 175 students with only 5 faculty members. We've always only had 5 faculty members, regardless of the enrollment. And that, you all know, that's not easy. And we, no matter what we would do, we would just always be given and constrained with 5 full-time faculty members. And this year, and I have to say, COVID really was very, very challenging for us. This past year, we went from, we were cut in half by students. So we now have a student enrollment of 80 students, which is very healthy. I'm not complaining, but when you're looking for resources and you're looking for faculty, and you're looking for tenure and promotion, and you're in a private nonprofit university, what they're looking for is where we were. So where we were is double the enrollment. So as of today, we have a student body of 80 students and 5 full-time faculty members. And we have, a couple of really awesome adjuncts that we use. So for me, and especially for those of you who've gone, most of you have gone through the NASPA accreditation cycle or cycles, it has to start with the mission. And I think if I had to describe what we do well, I mean, look, our genetics are there. We have a really good population to draw from. So in terms of representation, PICOR, people of color, we have a really good population in Brooklyn to draw from. So we're given that. However, what's going to happen in the future, I don't know. But the mission is where we start. And our intention has to be driven by our mission and what our the actual practice has to come from that. So in our mission, this is just some pieces of it. We really are dedicated to empowering men and women from all walks of life. So, we have that, we start with that, and then it has to interest our diverse student population. So whatever we do in terms of our competencies, in terms of our objectives or whatever, in terms of who we are as faculty, we have to be committed to the educational needs of this diverse student population. And in order to really represent and educate a diverse student population, we need to have diverse faculty. We need to have diverse faculty, and it has to be deliberate. It has to be intentional. And so, let me go to the next one. Okay, and so just to give you a sense, our racial demographics, it's high. It just is. It's what we have, and I'm thrilled that that's just so happens to where our university is located. So you could see it's predominantly Black. There's also a sizable white population as well. And 80% of students are minorities or people of color. And we're also an AANA, I don't know how to pronounce this acronym. Maybe someone could tell me, but it's AANAPISA. And is there a pronunciation for that acronym? Does anybody know?
At my former institution at UCI, we were also that. We always said ANAPISI.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That's better than, thank you. So we're an ANAPISI institution. So, recognizing others, but again, that's just our racial demographics. So we're, that certainly, and it certainly assists us in getting to where we need to be in terms of inclusion. And so this is our cohort for 20 and 19 and 20. And you can see if you look at Black or African-American, non-Hispanic, and we have some unknown, but if you take away that unknown, you can see where it's a predominantly here Black or African serving program. And in 2020, you can see pretty much the same thing. And we are predominantly female. Or so by gender identity, we're predominantly female. And so in terms of faculty representation, it's not only one of our objectives, and we all have diversity plans, but it's not only one of our objective, but it's, given our student body, it's a necessity. It's a necessity that we have representation. And so if we look at the gender identification, we have 3 females and 1 male. I'm actually the white female. So we have at the full professor rank, we have a Black male at the associate professor rank, 2 assistant professors, 2 females, 1 Black, 1 white, and we have an NTTA who's a Black female. So we're pretty well represented. And that's intentional. And we could talk about that after. How we're all intentional, but then what do you do? What's the practice, even though we're all intentional to get there? So not only are we operationalizing our mission through faculty representation, we're also doing it through faculty publication and service. So it's very intentional, and each one of us really needs to do what we need to do. It can't be the director, it can't be the dean, it can't be admissions. It just can't be. We don't have that luxury, even in an environment where we have the population. It just can't be a luxury. And you can see each one of us pulls out from our expertise. We pull out a piece of inclusivity. So for example, I did some work on LGBTQ turnover intentions. We have another professor who, she works on health disparities, inequities in health disparities. Another one of our professors works on students of color in graduate programs. Another professor works in terms of urban communities, housing, and health. So each, and another one works on intellectual disabilities. So we really make it our own. We own the need for inclusion. And so we also, it's not just about scholarship, it's also getting out into the world of public administration. And so, for example, Dr. Bakri El-Maidni, he's treasurer of section on African public administration for ASPA. I'm the chairperson for the section for women in public administration. We have Colette Canute, who's a board member to the League of Women Voters. Another one of our faculty was an ASPA Founders Fellow, and she's member of the International Studies Association. And I think what's interesting here about Simone is we actually went after her. Simone is a woman of color. She was an ASPA 2017 Founders Fellow. And we went after her. Because not only did she have the criteria, I mean, her background was awesome, but we knew we had to really be deliberate in going out and selling our program to her. And so we were very deliberate, and we're very lucky she's a fifth-year assistant professor. So faculty scholarship and service, and each one taking responsibility for getting that inclusion is really something that we consider important. Another curriculum component is outcome assessment. So again, it's not only organic, it also has to be by design. And when I talk about design and being deliberate, we put it into our mapping of course offerings. So it's kind of like hopefully holding us accountable. So in outcome assessment, when we take, for example, a competency to articulate and apply public service perspective, which is a goal in our mission, we then take it and operationalize it through a student learning outcome. And then we take that learning outcome, we come up with an objective, and we map it into courses. And sometimes the courses would make sense for housing policies, diversity and cultural competency. Well, Well, of course we would expect it in those electives. Okay, but in terms of core courses, we put it in a public budgeting and finance course. So we intentionally make diversity inclusion a necessary component into each of these classes, sometimes core, sometimes electives, but it's intentional, and we report it to NASPA, so we're held accountable. And then, of course, as I'm sure many of you do, we make sure that we bring inclusion into the classroom. So we really make it an intention to find speakers who could show our students who are role models, who are of different demographics, and who work in those parts of the public sector that we hope some of our students will enter as they, move on into their careers. So we make sure that our speakers are diverse, and that most of our classes, our professors bring in these diverse folks into the classroom. And this is just some more. And we celebrate Public Service Week every year by bringing in speakers who represent genders, who represent various the PICOR community, different demographics. And so again, that's intentional. All of these are intentionality that really we hope will bring inclusion into the curriculum. This is one of our current students who just graduated, and he's going to run for, he's a candidate who's going to be running for New York State government. So, we do everything we can to institutionalize inclusion and also to kind of market inclusion into our program. And then another career event. And then another important component in the curriculum is our capstone. So we have an end of program capstone. It's a 6th credit course, and I'm not going to go into too much of the detail, but I really want to point out that our capstone teams work with the faculty, and we sit down in our meetings and we really discuss what are some of the projects that we could work on with our students. So we really bring in and emphasize this whole inclusion piece. And so you could see some of the topics that we use. We have opioid crisis and social and economic welfare effects. We look at work, finance, family, and health. And in terms of, we look at that in terms of stress. We look at xenophobia in South Africa. We look at solving problems in terms of block grants. So there's a vastness of topics, or women in public service. And, even COVID-19, and looking at it in terms of adults and different minority populations. But it's all across the curriculum. It's not, it starts with our mission, it goes into our classroom, and it ends in this capstone, our capstone projects. And then what I think is really important for all programs, and I don't think size matters because no one helps us with this. I have to be honest. Nobody helps us with this. This is the director and the faculty who do this. I can't email IT or email marketing and ask them to please set up a Twitter page or a YouTube for us or anything of that sort. We do it. And we do it deliberately because we each one of us has to own it, because it's not going to just happen by itself. And so what we did is we actually designed a YouTube video. You could just go onto YouTube if you're interested to see what we do. And it really promotes the diversity and the inclusion of our program, our faculty, and our students in our MPA program. And so we intentionally have a way to get on social media so we can promote it, because again, like I said, we have a population to draw from, but there's no guarantee that's going to stay. The gentrification in Brooklyn is just incredible. And so finally, we're very proud. And again, honestly, small programs don't have the same resources as larger, well-endowed programs. I get that. And so regardless if I have 200 students or 70 students, we have the same exact resources. And so where does this come from? It comes from us. It just does. And so in the end, when I said I look at diversity, equity, inclusion through mission, intention, and integration, I think that's what the takeaway for me is, if anything, is that we need to start with a mission. We need to have intention, and then we have to implement, and that's through integration throughout the entire curriculum. So I hope I didn't take up too much time. Thank you. I hope I didn't take up too much time.
Thank you, Elise. We'll do some questions for you now, and then I'll go into NASPA resources, and then we'll open up the discussion for programs to talk about what they're doing. Katie?
Thanks. Thank you so much, Elise. That was really helpful and interesting. I had a couple questions. One is, when you're bringing in guest speakers to represent, different backgrounds, are you compensating those guest speakers? Because I know a lot of people from minority backgrounds are asked to do all of this extra work and not compensated. And how do you figure that out with your budget? And then the second question was, when you're setting up your end of program capstones, do I understand that students don't pick their own project, but rather they're assigned to pre-chosen projects that faculty provide them?
Awesome. Really good question. So the first one, in terms of compensation, that depends. We have compensated in the past. If we try to keep people as local as we possibly can, because our budget, we don't have a large budget, but I could beg sometimes begging works. Not often, but sometimes, if we need it, because we have a really a speaker who we really feel would be of service to the school, or particularly and to our program. But it hasn't been requested that often, because quite frankly, most of our speakers are pretty up there in their careers, and that hasn't been a request. But if there is, we would certainly do what we needed to do. So in terms of that, I hope I answered that. And if I have to go to my budget and sacrifice something else for something that I think would be worthwhile, I would. If I have that liberty, but we would work with people as best we can. And if we can't come to some sort of agreement, then, that's unfortunate, but it happens, it's real. And in terms of capstone, what we do is the first day of class, we introduce the students to the different capstone projects. They're team-based. And I'd love to, we can certainly, I would love to talk about our capstone, even off this. Our capstones are team-based. And we have our faculty members lead a team. And so the first day of class, they're introduced to the different topics. And based on based on the interests of the students, be it health or public, because those are our two specializations, if you will, we'll come up with topics that work. And more or less, most topics fit students' interests, because they're very broad, and we work with them, and they help design the project as well. So which you go. So I hope that answers your question. There you are. I hope that answers your question. And please, I'd love to talk about it, and we could talk about it together anytime. Thank you.
Hey, Marcia?
Yes, so
Marsha?
first of all, just on guest speakers, a tag on, because many of ours are from public sector, there's often gift limits, but when we're in person, we at least try to treat to a meal before our evening class, and that seems to be fine. My question is about student recruitment. So you obviously are doing well with Black and African American students. What strategies are you doing in terms of recruiting Latino and Asian Pacific Islander students?
That's awesome. So actually, we don't go out specifically for a particular demographic. It's just the nature of who we are. When I go out for recruiting, I go out to all the different agencies within a particular mileage that I could get to. So I try to build relationships with the different New York City agencies, with New York City Health and Hospitals. So there are different systems that I have. We don't have an online program. We just got, I just got an agreement with NYSET, the New York State Education Department, that we could move for an online program, but I haven't been able to get traction with the administration yet. So that I don't know. That I would need help in terms of how do we go out and particularly recruit certain demographics. But in terms of particular demographics, I don't go out specifically. We just go out and we recruit in terms of looking for deliberate PICOR minorities, but not necessarily a particular demographic.
Okay, and
To be
if I
honest.
could ask a second question, like our
And
first
I'd love,
question.
and if you guys have ways to do that, are you kidding?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear.
So my second question would be what you're covering in your introductory class. I know it's very hard not to get sort of stuck in Weber and Wilson, and so I was interested in what you're doing at the beginning of the program.
Awesome, good question. And I don't, quite frankly, I don't teach them. We have some of our other faculty members teaching them, and I could certainly send you syllabi if you're interested. But I can't, I don't know off the top of my head what it is that they do, but I do know that part of the mapping is that they would definitely have open discussions about different contributions of different demographics, of different genders throughout our history, particularly in public administration. But if you're interested in a syllabi, I could certainly connect you with our folks who teach the intro classes.
Steve?
I mean, I
Yeah,
teach
yeah.
I teach public budgeting and finance, and I'm mapped in terms of diversity and inclusion. And that, given, I don't know, you guys have in your programs when you have to teach something so specific, and I'm worried about teaching students Excel, and I have to bring in diversity and equity, it's, takes a lot of thought, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you for this. This is really helpful just to hear what you're doing and sort of how you're navigating this challenge. And so I have a couple questions. One is just where do your DEI efforts fit within the university's maybe strategic plan or broader efforts around this? And do you get kudos for that, or how does that sort of complement each other? And secondly, I'm at the University of New Orleans. We have a very diverse student body. We struggle with recruiting diverse faculty. There are 3 HBCUs just in the city alone. We try to diversify at least our adjuncts, but I know that's really insufficient, and that's a struggle as well. And so I just love to hear, you talked about really being intentional and actually reaching out and recruiting folks individually, but any other strategies around that, particularly when there's a lot of competition where Black faculty could go to an HBCU and maybe feel more like it's more culturally competent or more comfortable in that environment.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could solve the problems of the world, that being one of them, quite frankly. But so let me just start off with the university. The university's mission since 1926 has been access and excellence. So so we align right in with that. Do we get kudos for it? Is that what you asked? No, but the kudos we get is just our self-satisfaction of bringing in, and graduating all these folks. But so we align with our university, Middle States accredited, access and excellence. So if that answers that question, I mean, if you want me to go on with that, I will certainly. But so again, I'm sure some of you, we don't have GREs. I don't turn too many people away. I have to be honest, and it's not because we need their tushes in the seat, which we do. But I make certain that I speak with every single student who's interested in applying to the program. I just do. And if I don't have the time, I'll split that up with faculty. So we all kind of get to know different students. Look, a lot of them are mid-career. They haven't been undergraduate for 20 years. Am I going to look at a GRE and make that a determining factor? Absolutely not. We all, we've all lived hundreds of lives when you reach a certain age, or not. So in terms of being part of the university's mission, yes, we're right there with them. And we have our diversity plan is aligns with them as well. So that's something I would recommend, that if you have a university, and I'm sure all universities at this point, for the most part, have DEI missions of some sort, to certainly start there and align with that. In terms of faculty, that's hard. The pipeline is tough. There's no doubt about it. The pipeline it's not an easy solution. I think though we're in a transition stage now that DEI has really come into the fore. I hope that's the case. Like I said, what we did was we just through word of mouth, through speaking to other directors, through speaking to our colleagues, to getting to know people, to being part of ASPA's sections, learning who's looking for positions, going out. We knew this person, Simone, was a Founders Fellow. And we literally, we almost attacked this poor girl at one of the ASPA conferences. And so, how else do you go out and do you deliberately recruit? You just have to be very mindful. It's not easy. And I don't have all the answers. And I'm sure maybe as a group, we could certainly brainstorm on that one, but that's not easy. It's not easy, but it's certainly one of our very top priorities, as it is, I'm sure, yours. So that's the best I could answer that one, Steve. Maybe we could, learn from each other on that one. So
Great. Thank you, Elise, for a great presentation. I think we're going to switch some gears now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about NASPA's resources and things that we'd like to show off to you guys, and then also then open it up for some broad discussion from the group. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And actually, let me get the right tab up before I do that. Okay, so NASPA is really excited that we have a new tool to share with you all. This is NASPA's case in experiential learning repository. It's called Public Cases, located at publiccases.org. We are currently in a soft launch of this, but it is live and accessible to faculty at NASPA member schools. It is free of charge to all NASPA member schools for the first year of the launch. You know, it's the starting point for this collection of cases and learning tools is the Evans Hallway and the Humphrey School's Hubert Project. They have generously provided their cases to NASPA under this one repository where NASPA members have the ability to search for case studies and hopefully in the future we'll have simulations searchable here as well. But one of the areas that you're able to search on is equity and diversity, to be able to find cases that really speak to these issues. And I'd also say that while this is what NASPA is launching with, we are definitely planning, we are going to grow the collection of cases in here. And one of the areas that we are very interested in growing the case collection is in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we feel that, whatever the topic, that it should be part of what is going into it. But we feel that cases are a great way of a hands-on experience for students to both get materials, but really go through some of those decision-making issues that come to the forefront in public administration while considering the aspects of diversity that go into those decisions. One of the newest cases that we just added is on school resource officer crisis at Tolman High School. And so I'll just quickly go into the case, and you can see that faculty, when you have the ability to see the case on the website itself, and then there's also the files that are available for download. There's information about what the policy areas it covers. There are teaching notes. In this case, there's a video link to a YouTube video of the crisis that the student resaw, the crisis at Tolman High School. You have the ability to favorite cases and share, to go back and be able to see ones that you have highlighted and you want to go back to. You can share a case through Facebook, Twitter, or email to others. And you have the ability, if you want to use the case, to share that link with your students, and they'll be brought to a clean case page where they have access to those materials. That is one of the, sorry, I'm pulling down to a Hubert case. That was one from the hallway. This is a Hubert case. You can see that theirs are very video focused and a little bit more multimedia, and you have the ability to go off and have those materials available as well. So we are this is a resource that we are really excited for faculty at NASPA schools to be able to use. I can talk a little bit after going through some other stuff about how exactly you can log in and access the system. But you also have the ability to submit cases. NASPA is currently working with let me stop the share for a second, with ICMA and with on local government cases. We're working with AAAS on strengthening democracy cases related to elections. So we really believe that cases and other hands-on experiential learning materials are a great way to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into curriculum at programs. I'm going to quickly show a couple other resources, and then I can answer any questions that folks have. So one of the other things that NASPA has on its website, you can find within our resources and then resources for programs, there's a link to the AWPA diversity literature tool. And if you click on that, it has a listing of literature that can be used on topics to add to reading assignments within the curricular, and there's some information about exactly what those tools cover. And so we think that that's a great resource. We just wanted to make sure that you're all aware of from the Academic Women in Public Administration and Women in Public Sector at John Jay. They also have the ability for you to submit other resources if you see something that you think would be useful to be added there. And then really quickly, I'm going to also just highlight the public service indicators badge that Halise talked about. And just to give you, you can find information about it on the NASPA website, going under resources and initiatives. It is under there. But we have badges on civic engagement, inclusion, sustainability, and globalization. And these badges are available for any NASPA accredited program to show how they are committed to a specific badging area. And you can also see here what other schools are doing. So for example, there are, if I scroll down to the inclusion badges, sorry, just, you can see LIU Brooklands, you can go into their specific flip book that shows the things that they're doing. We also have John Jay with an inclusivity badge. We have in Virginia Commonwealth University with inclusivity badge. And so we have the information on what schools are submitting for those badges, what the curriculum that their topics that they've submitted, what their highlighted scholarship that they've submitted. And so that is another resource that NASPA will be taking some of the data there and also making that available to programs to see what schools are doing. But you can currently look at the flip book for individual schools to see what they're doing. That was a really quick overview of what NASPA resources are available. I wanted to make sure I have some time for questions and some broad discussion. Seth?
Hi, thanks. So I was just wondering, you were talking about the cases are going to be free for the first year. Do you know how much it's going to cost in the future? Is it going to be a cost per university? Is it going to be a cost per student? Because I like the idea, but we all have limited budgets, and honestly, I'm trying to cut as much out of the cost per student as possible.
Yeah. So in future years, what is being it has not been finalized. Obviously, the executive council has to make the decision, but where they are leaning and what I think will be the case is it will be part of a dues surcharge. So it'll be part of the NASPA dues, and then programs that don't want to have access to public cases could then opt out of that dues surcharge. Elise?
Yeah, I have not heard, I'm on the council and I haven't heard about the cases. So as a regular program director, is there any way that we could have been, that something could go out that will inform us that these cases are available?
Yes, so we're in a soft launch at the moment. There's
Okay.
still a few things, so we haven't gone out widely to the membership just yet. But the executive council should have been notified, so I'll follow
I
up.
just started, so maybe it was before my start, but
Uh.
putting that aside, it would really be great.
Yes. Charles?
Yes, and I remember hearing about the cases at a conference in the past, so I'm glad it's up there for now. My question is, I'm the only one in my school who has my own login account. So for the other faculty, will they just have to contact me with what they want and I download them for them?
No, so what will happen for accessing the system, everyone who's currently in NASPA's membership portal will actually first have to go there, set your password, and then those same credentials will be used for public cases. It'll be a single sign-on. And then anyone who's not currently in the membership portal, and that's, people who are in the portal are principal reps, people who have submitted conference proposals, people who have registered for the NASPA conference. If you've done those things, you're in our portal, and all you have to do is, go in and reset the password. For someone who's never interacted with NASPA before, what they'll do is go to that portal, and I'll drop a link in here and also send around that information. But they'll go and essentially join the portal, and then they will email me and say, I have created a login at the portal. Can you match me in the system? Because I'll do a verification that they're actually a faculty member at the university. And then they'll be able to log in with those same credentials.
So will they have to have a separate membership, or are they covered under the university?
Yeah, they're covered under the university. So
Thank you.
any faculty member or lecturer at your NASPA member school has access to the cases through your NASPA membership. And then there will be, this has not launched yet, but one of the parts of the system that will be launching is individual case purchases for non-NASPA members. And that's still being developed in the back end of the system of how that's going to work. But that will also be possible for people who are outside of NASPA, but we view public cases as a NASPA benefit. And so we want to make sure that, as part of your membership, all of your faculty have access to these cases. Great. If there are no further questions for me, I think, this would be a great opportunity for anyone else who wants to kind of share what your program is doing, or how you have thought about, diversity, equity, and inclusion within your curriculum, what challenges you're facing. Anyone who'd like to share anything, please feel free to jump in.
I did want to give one resource that I use in the spring. It's thrive.us. It's kind of a series of current issues. So I just think it has one of our, as you can tell from my question, has been one of our dilemmas is how to structure the intro class of kind of a combination of foundations and I guess for lack of a better word, you said lack of a better phrase, wicked problems in public administration. So we used to always use Stillman's concepts and cases, right? And so the Thrive cases, may get a little stale post-pandemic, but it's, more nonprofit, more community oriented on issues about, climate change, mental health, higher education, and much more sort of contemporary feel. So that's one thing we've used. I've also just kind of in the early stages of thinking about reframing some of the intro material more from a local perspective, because many of our students are local, not federal, state, and perhaps going back and covering more of social movements, community organizing, and particularly the sanitation movement. As opposed to, just kind of the world began with Woodrow Wilson. So that's some of the things we're contemplating, but I'm always looking for more ideas, and we're Hispanic surveying. And so, being somewhat broader on diversity as well. Although I will say another fabulous guest speaker via Zoom is Troy Brown, the incoming president of ICMA, someone I've known for a while, and he almost invited himself for a follow-up in person. Actually, he did once post-pandemic, and I had worked with him years ago on the diversity subcommittee of ICMA on preparing the next generation. So, and his own personal story, he started as a delivery driver and then, part-time in public works. And so I know those guest speakers are out there with a fuller range.
Can I just add on to what Marcia's saying? I don't know if I could answer that. You asked me that question, and again, I don't teach the intro courses, but I think that's a hard question to answer in a silo, because I think it needs to be something needs to start and then it needs to follow. So, in terms of throughout the curriculum. So looking at what you're saying granularly is awesome. I did look at Thrive, and I think that's a great suggestion for everybody. But when we think about what we're going to offer and how it's going to be taught in the intro classes, I think it's more in terms of where's it starting, where's it end, where's it going to be introduced, practiced, and mastered. And I think, maybe to also think of what you're suggesting in terms of across the curriculum can also be beneficial to all of us. Which isn't necessarily easy.
Yeah, and I'm trying to hit return and chat at the same time. We also moving that there seem to be two types of intro courses. One is kind of the foundations of public administration approach, and the other is sort of public administration or public service seminar. And so we're going more towards the latter and being clear that we're introducing the core values of the program in that course. And so I think that's what you're talking about, is how we kind of infuse throughout the whole curriculum. And for Stacy's purposes, this also aligns well with the badges, those core values of the program and the badge initiatives as well. So moving to that more integrated approach. But I'm still struggling to find as many materials as I can. And, I may do a piece about what are the themes in intro public administration texts, and where the gaps are in that. I think that might be a, JPAE type piece that I've been kind of contemplating over the summer.
It's good.
And on this note of the intro classes as well as the cases, I think I teach the intro. We call it the profession of public administration at our university, our intro PA class, and it's really just an orientation to the field. Especially, we get a lot of folks who are early career, maybe haven't worked in the public sector yet. So I do use cases, and I try to make them as local as possible, because we are very locally, regionally based. They're hard to find. Sometimes they're not written as teaching cases, but rather as case studies. And so I have to kind of adapt it. And I think that's why this initiative is so wonderful, because that's a lot of what they're doing is turning this information into teaching cases that then can be used by faculty elsewhere. And I've also had some good success having MPA students write cases, teaching cases for their capstones, and then they could eventually be incorporated. And so, and that's a way also to get more kind of diverse perspectives into the writing of these cases. And so I think it's just, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to build this repository of cases and to localize it. But, if we all kind of chip in there, and there's already some great resources out there, I try to really use free resources because I try to reduce the burden on students. And so I think that you can really build a strong base, and the cases are a great way. And then one last thing on that is that Halise talked about just guest speakers and how that can enrich a curriculum. And so it's wonderful, especially if you're using local cases, to then bring in the protagonist of that local case to talk to the class, and they realize that this is not some abstract exercise, but these are real people, that they could actually see themselves maybe in that position someday. And just the idea of just this reflective practice that, yes, we're doing the work, or they're doing the work, but they're also kind of looking back at it and reflecting on it. And so so I've just found cases to be a wonderful thing to integrate into, especially that intro class. And I'm really pleased that this is happening.
Sounds like a good panel to me. It's too late for this year's NASPA, but next year perhaps.
In fact, I think there will be some sort of a workshop, maybe pre-conference, on using teaching cases.
Yes, there definitely will be. We're sorting out exactly what that's looking like right now, but I think probably will be the Wednesday workshop, one of the Wednesday workshops before the conference on teaching cases in the classroom.
I was also referring to Marcia's idea of looking at different ways to teach our intros over, and the span of time, how it's changed and what we need today.
I also just dropped into the chat. NASPA has highlighted some JPay, TPA conference presentations on its website. And so that link brings you to the search that brings up the ones relating to social equity, diversity, inclusion, cultural competency. And as always, if there are resources that faculty are using that NASPA should be sharing or make more widely available, please reach out to me and I can happily get them on our website, or let other faculty know of ways that they can be using these resources. And I think I appreciate the Thriving US. I will definitely.
I don't know if it is appropriate or not, so tell me if not. But something that might also be helpful is a place where we could share syllabi on any classes or things that focus on these issues, or innovative ways that we have that people want to share syllabi that have incorporated DEI in courses where you might not expect.
Yeah. So one of the parts of the of the badging initiative is we are collecting the three courses that a program chooses to highlight as showing their commitment to that area. They do provide the syllabi for as well, and so in that flip book, like clicking the link will bring you to the syllabi of those courses. Great. Well, if there are no further comments or questions or discussions, we can give you a few minutes of your day back and end just a little bit early. I really want to thank Halise for joining us today and showing us what LIU Brooklyn has done. I'll be sharing with the listserv the information about accessing public cases. And if you have any questions about how to get into the system or get your faculty into the system, please feel free to contact me. Great. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Bye. Nice seeing everybody.